Hello guys, this is BenImparts here. Welcome to another episode of this Cryptid Cast series where I discuss cryptids, their sightings, their possibilities, what they could or couldn't be, and if they could be real or not. And today we have the Billdad. It's one of the most fascinating lumberjack cryptids because it seems to have quite a lot of likelihood that it's real, and it's found in one specific place, Boundary Pond in northwest Maine, just close to Hurricane Township. So what is the Billdad? Well, it's a rather beaver-like creature. It's rather like a platypus as well. It's about the size of a beaver. It has long kangaroo-like legs. It's got webbed feet. Its front legs are short, and it has a platypus or duck-like bill. And you might ask, well, how does this creature fish? Well, it crouches down and lies in wait on grassy points overlooking water, and then when a fish like a trout jumps up to get a bug, the Billdad will in turn jump up just past this trout or past this fish and bring its tail down with a smack on the fish. This stuns the fish naturally, and then it's picked up and eaten by the Billdad. And this Billdad's jump is nothing to be underestimated. 60 yards is reportedly the average jump for an adult male Billdad. Yep, it can jump 60 yards in one fell swoop across an entire pond. And allegedly, it's often heard at night, and when you're in Boundary Pond in northwest Maine, what you hear is the sound of what sounds like a paddle striking the water, but it's often said that that's actually the Billdad hunting at night, which is what you're hearing. And there are actual accounts of this Billdad, including from the wonderful book Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods, and I'm going to read out the description of it from there. Up to 3 years ago, the opinion was current among lumberjacks that the Billdad was fine eating, but since the beasts are incredibly shy and hard to catch, no one was able to remember having tasted the meat. The fall one was killed on Boundary Pond and brought into the Great Northern Piper Company's camp on Hurricane Lake, where the cook made a most savoury sungullion of it. The first and only man to taste it was Bill Murphy, a tote road swamper from Ambergeisis. After the first mouthful, his body stiffened, his eyes glazed, and his hands clutched the table edge. With a wild yell, he rushed out of the cookhouse, down to the lake, and leapt clear out 50 yards, coming down in a sitting posture, exactly like a Billdad catching a fish. Of course, he sank like a stone. Since then, not a lumberjack in Maine will touch Billdad meat, not even with a pike pole. This, of course, is one of the most fascinating kind of cryptids, the lumberjack cryptids, hence the reference to lumberjacks. And this also brings up a rumour, or legend within a legend, if you like, about the Billdad, that its meat is poisonous, that eating its meat is bad for you, can kill you, and can bizarrely have you acting like a Billdad, almost as if you're possessed by it. So I'm honestly not sure what's going on here, but what I think is, since there are multiple reports that the lumberjacks used to cook and eat these Billdads, I think that what might have happened, if this story is accurate, is that this particular individual ate a Billdad that was maybe poisoned, its meat was bad, maybe it had an illness, and he ate it, and the ensuing effects on him were devastating. I don't know if this suggests that Billdad meat is very tasty, but infected Billdad meat is very bad for you indeed and should be avoided like the plague. I'm not sure, but either way, according to this account, very few people have dared to eat Billdad meat since then. So I don't think it's a problem with the meat per se. I think it was probably this individual Billdad. And as I said before, the Billdad's often compared to the platypus. It looks rather a lot like a duck-billed platypus. It has a similar environment to the platypus. So what could the Billdad be? Well, it's found in one very specific location. There's multiple reports of it. There's no hints that it's a spirit, aka a jinn, aka a nature spirit, or whatever people call them. It seems to be a real physical creature. It's found in one specific location. There's lots of tales tied to it, and it looks a lot like a platypus. And before people say, well, there's no chance of the Billdad existing, when the platypus was discovered in 1798, many people thought it was a hoax. Many people thought it was fake news. It was only when Captain John Hunter brought a pelt back to England that people actually started to take it seriously. And even then, people wanted to see an expedition first to prove it was real. So I think that it's possible the Billdad is some kind of misidentified platypus, but again, then it would not be a platypus, it would be a different species. I think it's possible it could also be a tall tale, hence the story of the strange possession-like antics with the eating of the meat. I think it's possible that it could be some kind of misconception, but much more possible, I think, as it's alive and it's a real physical, tangible creature. And I think it's very possible it's a real marsupial found in one very specific location. But what do you guys think? Have any of you ever seen it? Do you have any stories from anyone who's seen it? Have any of your relatives eaten the Billdad? Please drop in the comments below what Billdad meat's like, what you think of the Billdad, if you've ever seen it, and stay tuned for the next episode.